had been passing under various aliases, and must therefore be sought for with the utmost diligence; while the second document was a letter from the governor of a neighbouring province with regard to a malefactor who had there evaded apprehension, a letter conveying also a warning that, if in the province of the town of N there should appear any suspicious individual who could produce neither references nor passports, he was to be arrested forthwith. These two documents left everyone thunderstruck, for they knocked on the head all previous conceptions and theories. Not for a moment could it be supposed that the former document referred to Chichikov. Yet, as each man pondered the position from his own point of view, he remembered that no one really knew who Chichikov was, as also that his vague references to himself had, yes, included statements that his career in the service had suffered much the cost of truth, and that he possessed a number of enemies who were seeking his life. This gave the tchinovniks further food for thought. Perhaps his life really did stand in danger. Perhaps he was being sought for by someone. Perhaps he really had done something of the kind above referred to. As a matter of fact, who was he? Not that it could actually be supposed that he was a forger of notes, still less a brigand, seeing that his exterior was respectable in the highest degree. Yet who was he? At length the tchinovniks decided to make inquiries among those of whom he had purchased souls, in order that at least it might be learnt what the purchases had consisted of, and what exactly underlay them, and whether, in passing, he had explained to anyone his real intentions, or revealed to anyone his identity. In the first instance, therefore, resort was had to Korobotchka. Yet little was gleaned from that source. Merely a statement that he had bought of her some souls for 15 roubles apiece, and also a quantity of feathers, while promising also to buy some other commodities in the future, seeing that, in particular, he had entered into a contract with the Treasury for law, a fact constituting fairly presumptive proof that the man was a rogue, seeing that just such another fellow had bought a quantity of feathers, and had cheated folk all round, and in particular had done the archpriest out of over 100 roubles. Thus the net result of Madame's cross-examination was to convince the tchinovniks that she was a garrulous, silly old woman. With regard to Malinov, he replied that he would answer for Chichikov as he would for himself, and that he would gladly sacrifice his property in toto if thereby he could attain even a tithe of the qualities which Paul Ivanovitch possessed. Finally, he delivered on Chichikov, with acutely knitted brows, a eulogy couched in the most charming of terms, and coupled with sundry sentiments on the subject of friendship and affection in general. True, these remarks sufficed to indicate the tender impulses of the speaker's heart, but also they did nothing to enlighten his examiners concerning the business that was actually at hand. As for Sobakevitch, that landowner replied that he considered Chichikov an excellent fellow, as well as that the souls whom he had sold to his visitor had been in the truest sense of the word alive, but that he could not answer for anything which might occur in the future, seeing that any difficulties which might arise in the course of the actual transferment of souls would not be his fault, in view of the fact that God was Lord of all, and that fevers and other mortal complaints were so numerous in the world, and that instances of whole villages perishing through the same could be found on record. Finally, our friends, the tchinovniks, found themselves compelled to resort to an expedient which, though not particularly savoury, is not infrequently employed, namely, the expedient of getting lackeys quietly to approach the servants of the person concerning whom information is desired, and to ascertain from them, the servants, certain details with regard to their master's life and antecedents. Yet even from this source very little was obtained, and since Petrushka provided his interrogators merely with a taste of the smell of his living-room, and Selifan confined his replies to the statement that the baron had been in the employment of the state, and also had served in the customs. In short, the sum total of the results gathered by the tchinovniks was that they still stood in ignorance of Chichikov's identity, but that he must be someone. Wherefore, it was decided to hold a final debate on the subject on what ought to be done, and who Chichikov could possibly be, and whether or not he was a man who ought to be apprehended and detained as not respectable, or whether he was a man who might himself be able to apprehend and detain them as persons lacking in respectability. The debate in question, it was proposed, should be held at the residence of the chief of police, who is known to our readers as the father and general benefactor of the town. End of Part 1, Chapter 9.